You may have heard me or other AI experts out there refer to something called a wrapper AI tool, sometimes in a kind of derogatory way. But today I'm going to talk to you about what exactly is a wrapper tool, why I dislike most of them, but consider a small handful to be absolutely essential for anything using AI these days. Now, if you're unfamiliar with me, my name is Jason Hamilton. I'm the nerdy novelist. I spent years writing 14 books the traditional way. Then I worked at Kindlepreneur for a couple of years, and now I teach authors how to use AI to write books quicker and more effectively without compromising your own creativity and ethics. So first, let's talk about what a wrapper tool is. Now, before I get into this, I want to make sure we are clear on the difference between a large language model, or LLM, and a tool that uses that large language model, because people often get these confused. And the first thing, the analogy I like to use is that of electricity. So imagine you're in your kitchen and you've got a variety of different appliances in your kitchen that do various things. Each of those appliances is like a different wrapper tool, a different software. However, they all run on the same thing, and that is electricity. The electricity in this analogy is more like the large language model. And there are many types of large language models, just as there are more than one type of electricity, or you can even factor things in like batteries, different types of batteries. But they all have the same function of running the tool that they are being used in. So in essence, what a wrapper tool is it is something that harnesses the power of a large language model in a specific way that is useful to that person, or to the person that they are trying to make a wrapper tool for. Now, the reason that I don't particularly like most wrapper tools is because most of them are not actually providing anything unique and relevant to the end user. There's no unique value proposition that makes it worthwhile. Most of them are just putting a new slap of paint onto something that we've already kind of seen before and calling it this new tool, and then they focus on their marketing to try and get people in through the door when they haven't actually produced anything unique. It's just like a ChatGPT knockoff or something like that. However, there are a small handful of AI wrapper tools that I do like. So in the rest of this video, I'm going to go into what some of those are. Keep in mind, this is not a comprehensive list of all of the tools that I use that have AI built into them. This is mostly focused on writing tools, as well as a couple editing tools. And there are many other tools that we could go into on this list. For instance, if you are a coder, you can use the same large language models that these writing tools use, but they use it in a different format, a different workflow that works for coding. We're not going to talk about coding in this particular video because I focus on writing, but you get the sense that like these large language models, they're powerful, they can do a lot of different things, but a wrapper tool is usually best when it takes those things and it specializes it in a specific way and provides a unique workflow, a unique value proposition, and sometimes unique prompts, although that's kind of a weak way of differentiating, that makes the AI even more valuable than the large language models are by themselves. Okay, so let's start first here and talk about this first one, which is another one, which is my favorite, which is Perplexity. And if you've been following the channel recently, you'll know I've talked a lot about Perplexity. It is my favorite chatbot at this moment. And that might come as a surprise for people that I am lumping this in with the wrapper tools, because they're thinking, aren't chatbots a little bit more simple? And the truth is, chatbots are not a large language model. They are themselves a wrapper tool. And you can kind of see that here in Perplexity, especially. If you go here to choose your models, we actually have multiple large language models inside of Perplexity, and you can change between them. So if I want to use Claude Sonnet 4.0, I can do that. If I want to use GPT-5, I can do that too. If I want to use Perplexity's own Sonar model, then I can pick that. It all just depends on what model I want to use. It's like a different battery powering the tool, but the tool still kind of presents its own useful things about it. So I'm going to switch this back to best here. First and foremost, Perplexity is like an AI version of Google, where it just goes out and searches the web for things. It's got deep research options. It's got this labs option, which is like an even better version of deep research. You can select where you're getting your sources from. So you can search just the entire web. You can search academic papers, social interactions, and then finance records. You also have a news feed area where you can not only get AI curated news here, but also some like financial news here, weather, that sort of thing. You've got spaces. This is essentially the same thing as a GPT or a project that you get in other large language models. This is just a nice way of organizing your prompts and everything, and especially if you have specific tasks that you do regularly using a chatbot, you can do those here. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Perplexity. I've made several videos about it, so you can go look through my past videos to see more about that. But this is one of my favorite wrapper tools that offers the most unique stuff while making it so that you can actually switch between large language models. So it is technically a wrapper tool in that sense. All right, the next one we're going to cover is Novelcrafter. So Novelcrafter is came on the scene, almost 2 years ago, I think. And quickly became most people's favorite novel writing tool. And I actually use it for nonfiction as well. This is one of my nonfiction projects, one of my older ones. And there's so much you can do with Novelcrafter. And what sets it apart is that it facilitates the prompting. So let's say you have 10 different characters in your story. That's actually kind of a small amount, but let's just run with it. But you only have 2 characters appearing in a specific scene. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could have it tailor your prompt to that scene so it only pulls in the information on those 2 characters for that scene? So you don't have all of your other characters, potentially making an appearance when they're not supposed to be. That's the sort of thing that Novelcrafter automates very well. And it's got a very extensive code that helps it to discern what should be where and all of that. And it's also incredibly versatile. Like, I know of no other AI wrapper tool that is this complex. And I mean that in a good way. Like, for some people, complex is a bad thing. You don't have to be doing all of this complex stuff with Novelcrafter. You can just kind of keep it to some simple prompts and working from there. But you can do anything. You can modify any of the prompts. You can bring in your own prompts. You can have like literally hundreds of entries into your codex. So for that will account for characters and locations and anything you can think of, like the different ways in which the AI should speak, that kind of thing. Different profiles, different sample prose options, all kinds of stuff that you can do in Novelcrafter. And I don't have enough time to really get deep into all of this. I am in the near future going to be going through several of these tools step by step, so you can really see them in action, see what it takes to set up a project, etc. And I don't have time to do that in this video, but suffice it to say, Novelcrafter is one of my favorite wrapper tools. If you are the person who wants to get really granular about every part of your book, if that makes sense. So that's Novelcrafter. Now, in slight contrast, we have another one that is very similar, but quite different in the workflow. And that is called Sudowrite. So this is a project I have going on in Sudowrite now. It is very similar in the sense that you can have like brain dump information, genre information, style, synopsis, lists of all your characters. So I have like Ragnar, Thornbjorn, all of these different characters here in my list of characters. And then I have some world building items. I have my outline, and it feeds on all of those things to help craft its chapters. And so functionally, this is very similar to Novelcrafter. It is not as complex or flexible. But for some people, that is a good thing. It kind of like they keep their own workflows. They're trying to be more of like the Apple of AI writing rather than the Android of AI writing. And that rubs some people the wrong way, but some people really like that. It is a little bit simpler to understand than Novelcrafter. Another good thing that they have going for them in Sudowrite is the Muse feature. So I will often come here to the write settings and make sure I'm using this Muse model. Now, this is their own proprietary AI large language model. So they are a little bit unique in the sense that Sudowrite is one of the only people on this list that has their own model being used here. And so that's something I really like about them. And it's a really good model for creative writing, more or less. So definitely one I recommend if you are kind of starting out, not sure what to do or how to work with these tools or anything like that. The Muse model and the more simplistic situation that you get in Sudowrite is a pretty good thing, I think. So that's Sudowrite. So we've got Perplexity, Novelcrafter, Sudowrite. The next one that you may have heard of is Raptorite. So Raptorite is, it's kind of in between Sudowrite and Novelcrafter. It's a little bit simpler in a good way. And that means that you can kind of just get started on things, similar to the way Sudowrite works. But at the same time, it's also pretty flexible. There's a lot you can do with Raptorite. I know a lot of people inside of my community, which by the way, you can find a link to that down below. A lot of people use Raptorite in their process. We just finished, about a month ago, we finished a book in a month challenge. And a lot of people were using Raptorite to do that, to actually write a whole book in a month, not just write it, but write and publish it in a month. We got a bunch of people that did that. And it is also very flexible in terms of what models you can use and things like that. And once again, I don't have the time in this video to really walk you through that, but I am going to be producing a lot more content about that. And but yeah, so this is one of the ones that I highly recommend. And there's a good thing about Raptorite, and that is, other than the AI words that you generate, which will be billed through an API service like OpenRouter, using Raptorite is completely free. You do not have to pay to use Raptorite, except for the words that you use. And if you're using free models, you could actually have something that's completely free. So that's nice. All right, those are the three main wrapper tools when it comes to writing with AI. I get requests for wrapper tools from all kinds of other different organizations that people want me to review them and stuff. And pretty much all of them do not provide anything extra, anything useful, other than what you might get in a chatbot or a tool like one of these that already exists. And I know the developers of all of these, and I know that they're like really good people that are, in most cases, are actual authors themselves trying to create a tool that is genuinely useful for authors. And so I trust that these three are the big ones, and they are the three that I'm focusing on in future content that will be coming out. But there are a few others that I actually do kind of like. The first is this one. This one's called EditGPT. You can get it at editgpt.app. And this is essentially a proofreading tool. It does not do much else besides that. I suppose you could probably work on it and try to get it to proofread even more effectively and do more line editing stuff, but I haven't really been able to get that out of it. I find it to be just a simple proofreading tool that's really useful. Proofreading is the simplest and easiest form of editing because it's very rule-based, and so AI can understand it a little bit better. And, you know, proofreading a book with an actual human proofreader, I have found will cost you a couple $100s per book, and it's usually not perfect. They usually miss some things, and AI is actually better at not missing those things. So this is something I recommend you do, is use a proofreading tool. And the reason I like this one in particular is because it is still a wrapper tool. It's using other large language models to do the proofreading for it, which you could just do in a chatbot, honestly. But what makes EditGPT a little bit unique is if you proofread it, it will actually go through. First, it's got to process the text here, and you'll notice it will actually give you recommendations using an editing system that will look familiar to you if you use Microsoft Word or something like that to approve edits made by somebody else. So it'll say, okay, we wanted to cut out the word here and add it here. So instead of it was caked heavily in Rust, it was heavily caked in Rust, which is just doing a little bit better job with the flow of the sentence there. So I could hit this, select it, and say accept, and it will select it. And if I scroll through this and I don't see anything that is a red flag to me, I could just go up here and accept all, and it will accept everything that it's highlighted for me. So I have a lot more control about what it decides to proofread or not. And that if you're doing this inside of a chatbot, you're not necessarily going to be able to easily see, without studiously comparing side by side, what changes were made when you asked it to proofread. And I have found that sometimes it changes things, like maybe names or capitalizations of things that you didn't want it to change. And so in those cases, you would highlight those and reject it. And from there, and then accept everything else. And I find that this is a really good just visual way of seeing it. And it helps that EditGPT is a relatively inexpensive thing. I think it costs like $10 a month for the basic plan, which is probably the only one you'd need. And I do actually use this one myself. I get questions about whether I actually use all of the tools that I talk about. And to be fair, I do talk about some tools that I don't personally use, not because they're bad or anything. Like they're good, but it's because I only use one method for myself, right? And there are many instances where you might want to be using one of these other tools instead of the way I do it, depending on who you are, what your workflow is, etc. So just because I don't use everything here doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that that's just not the tool for me. But as a content creator here, I do try to go through and talk about each one because I think they do offer value for authors. But this is one that I actually do use, especially if I am reviewing content that was human written, because if it was AI written, it's less likely to have any grammatical errors. Although you could probably go through and create your own prompt inside of EditGPT that highlights specific things that AI does a lot, like M dashes and stuff like that, and have those be edited out. Regardless, I do think this is a useful tool just because of the workflow and the way you visualize things, so it is one that I recommend. Last but not least on my list is this tool called Autocrit. Now, it's been a while since I did a video about Autocrit, but I have started using it a little bit more recently, and I have pretty much decided that it is my favorite editing tool. There are a few things that I wish it did that it does not currently do, and I'll do more videos in the future about what some of those things are and how to use it. But I've got some like automations and workflows that I'm working with that kind of pair the Autocrit with some AI tools and some other AI workflows that I have that should make it even more useful. Now, Autocrit is not really an AI tool per se, at least not at its core. It existed before AI was really a thing, but it has done some really clever integration of AI into its platform that I think is actually genuinely useful. So for instance, the main thing that it's known for is creating all of these reports, right? So I put in my novel here on the left side here, and on the right, I can run a report to see, like, for instance, how many adverbs are there? And looking through the whole document, it identified 721, which it deems as too many. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit small for some of you. I'll try to zoom in here. And is recommending that I remove 270 of them. So I could click here for the detailed report on just adverbs, and it will actually show me all of the different adverbs. If I select them, it'll actually show me where those are. And I can basically make a judgment call on whether that should be changed or not. It's really good if you are just looking into these manually and trying to think, how can you make this a little bit better? However, there are a couple of AI tools in here that I really like. My favorite is the fiction analyzer here, which will go chapter by chapter through this and essentially give you a developmental edit. And it does a pretty decent job of it. So if I select the fiction analyzer here, what it will do is it'll actually go through and summarize the entire chapter for each chapter. It'll give me conflict, the characters, the deep point of view, the world building, the possible contradiction events, timeline analysis, foreshadowing events, plot thread tracking, genre analysis, hooks, and then it'll repeat that for each chapter. And then from that, it'll do this Analyzer Plus thing where it will actually give me the story's premise, the target genre, the target tropes, a bunch of different stuff that is useful to know. It'll give me more information about the world there, the characters, etc. And I find this to be a really fantastic way of quickly going through my text and seeing, like, is there anything that I can improve here? It also has a couple of other AI tools built in, like there's a fiction story builder. So in this case, if we want to do a totally new idea, so we can actually go here to brainstorm our new story idea. So you can enter in whatever you've got already, and then you can also just auto generate a new idea. So you can say generate ideas for all empty fields. So what I would do is just go through these fields, fill in what you've got so far, and then probably hit this button right here to generate ideas for all empty fields. And it will go through and do that. And then you can go through and validate whatever it gives you and say, okay, yes, do I want this? Do I want that? And it's a genuinely useful tool that is just kind of a side tool inside of Autocrit, but like I would almost pay for just this feature alone. The great thing about Autocrit is that there is a lifetime deal. If you use my link, they don't really offer the lifetime deal publicly, so you can get that below. These are affiliate links, but as always, I don't recommend any affiliates that I don't either use myself or strongly recommend for authors. In the case of like Novelcrafter versus Sudowrite versus Raptorite, I basically for those, I will just say pick one of them that is best for you. They're all good. They will all work. But in the case of EditGPT and Autocrit, I actually do kind of recommend picking these up if you want something to help you with your editing. So that is it for my recommended wrapper tools so far. Let me know in the comments if you have any that you would recommend. And got some other links down there that might be useful for you, including our membership where you can learn how to write 12+ books in a year. So basically a book a month or more. It's the quickest path of figuring out how to do that using one of these tools or using some other methods, which I get into there. And I hope this is useful for you, and I'll see you in the next video.